Hello, this is Joe Welinske from Writers UA, and I'm talking with some of the speakers who will be at our event in Charleston. And today I'm speaking with Mirhonda Studevant. Hello, Mirhonda.
Hello, Joe.
How's everything going today?
Going pretty well. How are things with you today?
Oh, all right. I'm in the Seattle area. We're having some good weather. Where are you speaking to us from?
So I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, and we're having sort of a cloudy day, so we must have inherited your weather today.
Well, so you'll be visiting with us and talking in Charleston, South Carolina at the end of October. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, your organization, the types of things that you're involved in?
Certainly, my pleasure. I am a senior knowledge manager with Deltec Incorporated, and Deltec does accounting and software management. Soft, I'm a senior knowledge manager with Deltec Incorporated. Deltec does accounting and project management software primarily for government contractors. And what I'm involved in as a senior knowledge manager, I report to the customer care operations team. I'm part of that team, and essentially my responsibility is to support. Deltec does offer a site that is essentially one-stop shopping for the customer as well as Deltec partners. It's called the Customer Care Connect site. And what it does is allow a point of interaction for customers and partners where they can get information about products, they can get download software releases, they can get information about upcoming classes, they can have all of that basically at their fingertips, and it really supplements. They can log cases that initiate contact with the support organization. So it's essentially one-stop shopping for that customer that is the primary point of interaction and point of initial contact. So
And
that's,
and
go
what
ahead.
types of things are you involved in with respect to that?
So that's a great question. So as a senior knowledge manager, what I'm involved in is sort of the organization of the knowledge base component of that site. So there are several components. There are several interactive components that include forums, knowledge base. I also collaborate with the documentation team as far as being sure that our support team is aware of new releases. Deltec has a number of products, so it's not just one or two product lines, it's many product lines, and sort of being sure that the information is available in a timely fashion, both internally and externally. Some of the other things that I'm involved in are search engine optimization. We do use the Coveo search engine, so that's another thing that has to be incorporated and also has to be implemented as far as constantly updating and improving not just the search engine itself, but the education around it. It's essentially like a Ferrari of search engines, and it's something that's sort of different and takes a little getting used to. So it takes some time and learning internally for people to understand really how to maximize it, how to use it in the best possible way. Some of the other things that I do have to do with customer feedback. So if people have feedback regarding knowledge base articles, if there are specific questions that relate to some aspect of search, knowledge base, things like that. And there are also internal cases, by the way. So my customers are internal and external. So there are questions, there are constant improvements and optimization projects. And the other thing that I'm also involved in has to do with acquisitions. Deltec has had two acquisitions. I've been there just over a year now. And another part of my function as a knowledge manager is to go into our acquired companies and to figure out how we're going to onboard those support systems, those search engines, those processes, and basically align them and bring them onto our platform. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
Well, that kind of leads into learning a little bit more about the topic that you're going to be discussing in Charleston, which is cultivating a unified user assistance culture. In the session description, you talk a little bit, about ways that uh, you're involved in breaking down silos or making sure that there aren't information silos. But what are the things that the challenges that you find in terms of getting to that unified user assistance culture?
That's a great question. There are several challenges that exist, and a lot of it has to do with the culture. So it's sort of interesting, especially having worked with acquisitions recently. Despite the size of the company, it's very interesting about how some organizations have their training is very distinct from documentation, which is very distinct from marketing, which is very distinct from support. And sometimes people have no idea what other information a customer might be receiving. Then I've also been involved in other organizations where they work very closely together. You know, they realize the benefit of really collaborating and finding ways to single source and reuse content. And that does a couple of things. First of all, it cuts down the workload internally because if someone has already defined or explained something, there's no reason that an information developer needs to go in and define something that's already been defined or explained. Or if someone is developing training, if an instructional designer is going and developing training for that same project or product, there's really no reason for someone to rewrite what's already been developed. So it's sort of interesting in different organizations, different environments. Sometimes there's a very high level of collaboration, which results in a lot of efficiency and benefit to the client. And then in other situations, it's very siloed and it's really difficult. People can be very territorial about sharing information, about collaborating, and it really is interesting. And there's usually a few champions within the organization. There are people who definitely see the benefit, but they may be perplexed as to, you know, how do I get this started? How can I get people on board with this methodology and this approach? And that's really what I hope to explain in my session, is to really give people ideas about how they can begin building those bridges, how they can keep things going, and how it's always not necessarily a huge price tag. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to immediately start off with a huge content management system or, you know, some very elaborate pricey proposition, but just to start off, just understanding what people are doing, how they're going about it, and just finding small ways to work together and collaborate. And then you can sort of grow and expand. That can be sort of your long range vision, is to see how you can officially, you know, through your applications and your tools, how you can better manage that collaborative process. But it definitely, first of all, you know, essentially requires having that champion and having that willingness to share information.
Well, I know when I work with clients and there's different groups that are contributing to the overall information that's being delivered to customers that I find I really have to create a connection with people within those different departments, so that you know I really understand what their point of view is, what they need to get done in their jobs, and then kind of being in the middle of these different groups, I can sort of be an interpreter to help that flow of information. But I've always found that it ends up being very people process as opposed to a technical process. I mean, at some point, technologies bring data together, but usually the starting point for me, at least, is to figure out what people have in common and understand what their individual goals are. Do you find that in the work that you do?
Absolutely. You know, business is really all about relationships. And you hit the nail on the head with that initial discussion and discovery being, what is it that people need? I tend to go in and find out what the pain points are. You know, and that is sort of the carrot that you can dangle in front of people, that, and it really opens up. You know, everyone loves to speak about their jobs, to talk about what they're doing. And when you're able to find out, what is it that you like about what goes on today? What are the things, optimally in utopia? How would you like things to be? How would you like things to flow? And when you get into those conversations, then you begin to understand sort of how you can help motivate people, how you can help align their various goals and sort of what things they have in common, what commonalities you can build across. And that's really once you start getting people to understand, here are the common things, here are the common benefits that we can derive. That's when you start getting that collaboration and cooperation because people understand essentially what's in it for them and how they'll benefit, how their organizations, their teams will benefit, and then they can sort of see themselves in the collective picture. It's sort of like everyone has a different piece of the puzzle, but you can't really see the big picture until everyone brings their piece. So when people understand what their piece is, then people will really, they tend to be much more willing to come, oh, this is the piece that I bring. This is how I can help this process along. And that really fosters a lot of collaboration and cooperation.
Yolene, your the title of your talk, "Cultivating a User Assistance Culture." I guess cultivating is probably easier when a culture isn't already heavily embedded in an organization. What do you run into situations where there's things about the embedded culture because of how things have been done for a long time, um, where it makes it difficult to get the changes that you want? And if so, are there any particular aspects of user assistance as an example of that where you've had to work with a culture where maybe there needed to be some adjustments to it?
Oh, that has never happened. No, I'm just kidding. There's definitely the current culture has to be taken into consideration, and it is sort of like a death blow when people start talking about, well, this is the way we've always done it, and that kind of thing. But and that really is true. So there are several factors that come into consideration. It has to do with the age of the organization. It has to do with the members in the organization. How long have they been there? How much back history do they bring with them into that project or process? And then there's just that certain level of attachment. There's sort of a fear of the unknown that people have. And I have gone in just going into new products or new projects where they might not have had a knowledge base before, or they actually have one and don't know it because they don't have anything formal. What they might have are a bunch of notes written in a training notebook or scraps of paper all over their desk, that kind of thing. So there is a knowledge base there. They just don't realize it. And there's sort of that relinquishing of information. So there are some people that are just, less information hoarders. I mean, let's call it what it is. So they just want to keep the information. Knowledge is power. If they keep all of the knowledge, all the information, then they have that perception and feeling of power. And it can be very difficult to get those people to release anything, to cooperate with anything, because they see it as losing ground. They see it as them sort of relinquishing and losing part of their power. When in fact, if they would go ahead and cooperate, and what it does, and what I've tried to do in those situations is really sort of exploit that factor, exploit the fact that, oh, you're the guru and you know everything about this. And typically cross promotion. So if people know you just in your department, they know that, you're the guru, you're the genius in your group. But look, there are more groups that would benefit from your expertise, from the things that you know. And it sort of expands someone's brand to be well known, not just within your own team, but across multiple teams. So there is a way to approach that, but you're right, it can be very delicate and precarious in trying to sort of balance the objectives and goals with people's individual, preferences and concerns.
All right. Well, it sounds like a really interesting topic, and look forward to hearing you talk about it in Charleston. So till then, I'll Well, I'll see you at the end of October. So thanks for doing this interview with me.
Oh, certainly my pleasure, Joe, and I look forward to seeing everyone in Charleston.
All right. Bye bye, Miranda.
Bye. Thank you.